There are nights when the soul feels tired of being strong all the time. When gentle hearts feel overlooked. When kindness is mistaken for weakness. And the one who has tried to be patient and soft-spoken wonders if any of it truly matters at all. There are days when mercy has been poured out again and again. Yet the world has answered with noise. With sharp words. With indifference. And the heart that chooses gentleness begins to ache beneath the weight it carries. In that quiet ache. In that hidden longing for a different way of living. The blessing of meekness and mercy begins to shimmer at the edges of awareness. Like a distant light over a calm hillside at dusk. Take a slow, deep breath. Gently through the nose. And let the air fill the chest and the belly. Hold it for a moment in stillness. Now let it go. Softly. Letting the shoulders loosen. Letting the jaw relax. Letting the thoughts of the day drift a little further away with every exhale. Feel the body resting a little heavier wherever it lies. Safe. Supported. Sheltered in this moment of quiet. If any tension rises in the neck or back, imagine it softening, untying, melting away like mist under a gentle morning sun. If these stories bring you peace, take a moment to like this video. Subscribe for more nightly reflections. And share where you're listening from tonight. Your words and presence help keep this space warm and growing. Now, take another slow breath. Let's begin. In the distance, a hillside rests beneath a wide open sky. The air is cool and tender, carrying the scent of earth and wild grass. A soft breeze moves over the slopes, brushing past olive trees, stirring the edges of worn cloaks. As people slowly gather and sit upon the ground, the light is gentle, not harsh or burning, but warm and kind, like a lantern held close to comfort those who have walked far. Here on this hillside, the weary sit beside the hopeful, the broken beside the searching, the meek beside the ones who have known sorrow. They do not gather in power or wealth. They come with empty hands, with ordinary lives, with stories of loss, of longing, of quiet endurance. Among them, some carry grief like a hidden stone in the chest. Some have been pushed aside, spoken over, forgotten in the corners of crowded rooms. Some have chosen mercy again and again, even when anger would have been easier. Even when the world told them to harden their hearts instead. And some have lived meekly, not out of fear, but from a deep knowing that true strength does not need to shout. That real courage can bow low, trusting that God sees what the world does not honor. On this hillside, a voice begins to rise above the murmur of the crowd. Not loud, not harsh, but steady and filled with a quiet authority. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the merciful. The words move like a soft wind through the gathering. touching the ones who feel small, the ones who feel unseen, the ones who have tried to be gentle in a world that rewards the loud and the proud. With every blessing spoken, it is as if the weight on their hearts is gently lifted, little by little, replaced with something light and luminous. In these blessings, God is not far away on a distant throne of untouchable light. God is near, sitting with the grieving on the hillside, standing beside the meek in their quiet battles, holding the merciful when their kindness has been misunderstood. In this story, in this sacred moment, the promise is simple and steady. Those who bend low will be lifted. Those who show mercy will be wrapped in mercy. Those who seem small in the eyes of the world are held as precious in the heart of heaven. So the soul that listens tonight is invited to rest in this truth. Not everything has to be fought for. Not every wound must be hidden. Not every burden must be carried alone. In the gentle way of the Beatitudes, there is room to be soft, to be kind, to be tender, and still be deeply blessed. Take another slow breath, letting it draw in quietly, like the breeze over that hillside. Let it out in a long exhale, as if laying down one more heavy thought before God. Rest in the assurance that meekness is not failure, that mercy is not weakness, that the one who spoke blessing over the hillside speaks blessing over this very moment too. You are seen, even in the places no one else notices. You are loved, even when the world does not understand the softness of your heart. You are held by a mercy that does not grow weary. Let the body sink a little deeper into stillness now. Let the mind loosen its grip on the unfinished tasks of the day. Let the spirit imagine sitting on that gentle slope, listening to words of blessing drifting over the crowd like a calm and holy breeze. Here, nothing has to be proven. Nothing has to be earned. Here, blessing is spoken over the meek, over the merciful, over the ones who feel small and yet are deeply treasured in the sight of God. The hillside rests in a hush that feels almost sacred, as if creation itself leans in to listen. The soft morning light glows through a thin veil of mist, weaving gold around the edges of stones and grass, turning every small thing into something quietly holy. People settle onto the earth, shifting gently, drawing cloaks close, waiting in that tender space between silence and revelation. No one rushes. No one raises a voice. The atmosphere holds the weight of anticipation, mixed with the gentleness of dawn. The wind moves with a slow, steady rhythm, stirring the branches of nearby olive trees, their leaves glimmering like scattered silver whenever the light touches them. Some children lean against their parents, drifting between wakefulness and dreams, lulled by the soft murmur of the crowd. A few elderly hearts sit with hands folded, eyes softened by years of longing, their bodies tired, their spirits still listening. And around them, The hillside becomes a cradle for the weary, a place where burdens loosen just a little, where hope begins to breathe again. Jesus stands among them, not elevated on a throne, not surrounded by guards, but simply present. His presence carries a quiet weight, the kind that steadies the trembling, the kind that soothes without a word, the kind that invites even the most wounded heart to draw near. Nothing about him demands attention, yet all eyes slowly lift to meet him, drawn by something deeper than curiosity, drawn by the whisper of peace. Blessed are the meek. The words drift out like a gentle tide, rolling over the hillside, settling into the hearts of those who hear them. They are not spoken as a rebuke, not as a command, but as a warm assurance, a truth meant to comfort those who have lived softly in a world that often rewards the loud. The meek feel the words like a hand resting lightly on their shoulders, steadying, affirming, reminding them that gentleness is not invisibility, and humility is not insignificance. Blessed are the merciful. The phrase wraps itself around those whose hearts break easily, the ones who forgive before they are asked, the ones who carry compassion so deeply it sometimes aches. It fills them like cool water pouring into thirsty places, reminding them that every act of mercy is seen by heaven, that compassion is not wasted, that tenderness is never forgotten. Some in the crowd close their eyes, letting the words settle into the cracks of their own quiet wounds. Some feel tears rise without warning, not out of sorrow, but because the blessings speak to the deepest parts of who they are. The hillside seems to breathe with them now, expanding with their hope, softening with their surrender. The ground beneath them feels steady, rooted, safe, as if the earth itself holds their stories without judgment. Above them, the sky opens wider, pale blue stretching over the gathering like a gentle canopy, filled with promise rather than pressure, filled with calm rather than storm. Jesus continues to look upon them, not as a crowd, not as a mass of faces, but as individual souls. He sees the one who has been overlooked. He sees the one who speaks kindly even when spoken to harshly. He sees the one who carries mercy like a lantern in the night. He sees strength where the world sees softness. He sees courage where others see quietness. And in his gaze, in his stillness, lives the truth behind his blessings, that the kingdom of heaven bends toward the humble, the gentle, the compassionate, the ones who reflect the steady heart of God without needing to be seen. A mother on the hillside pulls her child close, breathing in the comfort of the moment. A young man who has carried guilt far too long feels a small unclenching inside his chest. An older woman, whose voice has been ignored often enough for her to believe she has nothing left to offer, feels dignity rising quietly like dawn. The blessings are not loud proclamations. They are gentle invitations. Invitations into a life shaped not by striving, but by surrender. Not by force, but by faith. Not by self-exaltation, but by trust in the one who sees all, holds all, and loves without measure. The meek lift their eyes, no longer ashamed of their quiet strength. The merciful breathe deeper, reminded that every act of compassion reflects the heart of God. The mourners rest a little easier, their grief no longer carried alone. And the hillside becomes a place where heaven touches earth through softness, through humility, through tenderness. Let yourself breathe with them now. A slow inhale, gentle, steady, a soft exhale, releasing, loosening, settling. Imagine the hillside stretching quietly before you. Imagine the sun warming your skin. Imagine the blessings drifting over you like a soft, holy breeze. Here, there is no pressure to be more, no need to be louder, no expectation to harden your heart. Here, gentleness is strength, mercy is power, and meekness is a doorway to blessing. The words linger over the hillside like a gentle mist. Blessed are the meek. They do not fade quickly. They do not rush away on the wind. They remain, resting upon the hearts of those who sit and listen. Around Jesus, the crowd grows still in a different way now. Not the stillness of fear, not the stillness of people silenced by force. It is the stillness of recognition. When the soul hears something that reaches into a place it has not had language for. Those who have walked quietly through life. Those who have yielded rather than demanded. Those who have chosen a soft answer instead of a sharp one. They feel a subtle tremor of hope within. Meekness does not shine like the armor of a warrior. It looks more like good soil, dark and open, ready to receive seed and rain, ready to bring forth life in due time. It does not shout its strength, does not need to prove itself. It simply remains open under the hand of God, willing to be shaped, willing to be planted, willing to be patient. A man sits near the front, his hands rough from years of labor, lines of strain etched along his forehead. He has known what it means to be spoken over, to be blamed for things he did not do, to be overlooked when rewards were handed out. Many times anger has risen in him like a storm, yet something deeper has held him back from striking, from cursing, from hardening. He has chosen instead to bow his heart before God in the quiet of the night, letting tears fall where no one could see, asking for the strength to remain gentle, even when treated harshly. As the blessing is spoken over the meek, he feels a warmth spread slowly through his chest. Not a sudden blaze, but the steady glow of a lantern being lit inside a darkened room. The world has not honored his quiet choices. But here on this hillside, in the presence of the one who sees all, His meekness is called blessed. Not foolish. Not weak. Not naive. Blessed. Nearby, a woman sits with her hands folded lightly over her knees. She has lived many years in the shadows of louder voices, used her words carefully so as not to stir conflict, stepped into the role of peacemaker again and again. There were moments when she believed her gentleness did not matter, when her efforts to keep peace seemed invisible, as if the world turned only for those who demanded to be seen. Yet when Jesus speaks of the meek, promising that they will inherit the earth, something within her relaxes, like a tight thread finally loosening. Inherit the earth, not by force, not by grasping, not by climbing over others, but by living in such deep trust of God that the heart rests, knowing that nothing good will be withheld. A life not built on competition, but on quiet confidence. A soul not driven by fear of missing out, but anchored in the care of a loving Father. Across the hillside, others feel the blessing wrap around them like a soft mantle. A young man who has stepped aside so others could pass first. An older neighbor who has forgiven an offense that was never acknowledged. A child whose heart is tender and easily moved to compassion. All of them, the meek ones, hear Jesus speak and realize, perhaps for the first time, that heaven leans toward their way of being, that God cherishes the softness they have been tempted to hide. Meekness is not the absence of strength. It is strength submitted, strength surrendered into the hands of one who knows how to use it well. Like a powerful river guided by its banks, meekness channels passion into patience, energy into service, conviction into gentle action. It is the courage to trust that God will defend, God will vindicate, God will open doors, so the soul does not need to claw or fight for every inch. On the hillside, the listeners breathe a little deeper. The air feels kinder, as if the very atmosphere has been softened by mercy. The sun climbs slowly yet remains tender, wrapping warmth around weary shoulders. A bird glides over the crowd, its wings spread wide, held aloft by currents it cannot see. So too, the meek are held aloft by a strength that is not their own, carried by grace they cannot always name, but often feel in quiet moments when they choose peace over retaliation. The heart that listens tonight may recognize this path. The quiet choices not to answer harshly, the gentle decisions to step back rather than push forward, the moments when anger could have ruled, but kindness was chosen instead. Though the world may not applaud such moments, the one who spoke on that hillside remembers every single one. Take a slow, deep breath now. Let the air move in gently, filling the lungs in a calm, easy wave. Hold it for a heartbeat, feeling the chest rise and pause. Then let it flow out, long and unhurried, as if releasing every time meekness felt like a disadvantage. Every time mercy felt unnoticed. With each exhale, imagine laying down the need to prove worth, to defend constantly, to strive without rest. In the quiet of this moment, blessing settles like soft rain over the man who holds his tongue when insulted, over the woman who chooses to listen before she speaks, over the soul who walks gently through life even when pushed, over the one who hears these words and realizes that the softness of their heart is not a flaw to fix, but a reflection of the gentle heart of God. The hillside remains still, yet in that stillness, lives are being realigned. Some will leave knowing they are not lesser for being meek, but deeply loved. Some will walk away with shoulders a little straighter, not out of pride, but because they finally understand that heaven calls their gentleness blessed. The promise that they will inherit the earth begins to sound less like a strange phrase, and more like a tender assurance that in God's time, in God's way, nothing surrendered in love is ever truly lost. Let your body sink a little further into rest now. Let your heart lean into the quiet strength of meekness. Let your thoughts drift like clouds across a soft blue sky, not clung to, not chased, simply passing. You are not forgotten for being gentle. You are not unseen for being kind. In the kingdom Jesus describes on that hillside, meek hearts are honored, uplifted, cherished. The blessing over the meek settles into the hillside like dew resting on quiet grass. And as the air softens, another blessing begins to move through the gathering. Gentle at first, like the beginning of a stream finding its path through untouched soil. Blessed are the merciful. The words reach those who sit with hearts worn from caring too deeply. Those who have poured themselves out again and again, often without recognition, often without thanks. And as the phrase drifts over them, something inside begins to tremble softly, not with fear, but with a tender relief. The kind that rises when a long misunderstood part of the soul is finally named as holy. Across the hillside, people shift slightly, leaning forward, as if mercy itself calls them to listen more closely. A young woman wipes her eyes with the edge of her sleeve. The quiet tears not born of sorrow, but of release. For years she has been the one who stepped in when others were hurting. The one who cooked for neighbors who fell ill. The one who forgave wounds that were never acknowledged. She never thought of these actions as special. They simply rose naturally from a heart that could not bear to see pain left unattended. Yet she has wondered, quietly, secretly, whether her softness made her vulnerable, whether mercy in a hardened world made her foolish. Now, as Jesus names mercy as blessed, the gentle weight of those years begins to lift. Every tender act, every silent kindness, every moment she chose compassion over bitterness. None of it was wasted. None of it hidden from the eyes of heaven. Each small mercy stands like a candle glowing in the long corridor of her life, lighting the path not only for others, but for her own weary heart. A man sits to her left, older, his beard touched with grey, his hands clasped tightly together. He remembers the night he forgave someone who never said sorry, the night he extended kindness to a stranger who later betrayed his trust. He remembers how mercy cost him, how it stretched his heart until it ached. But he also remembers how something within him refused to harden, even when pain pressed in from every side. Hearing the words "Blessed are the merciful," he feels an unexpected warmth rise in his chest. A warmth that whispers that mercy did not diminish him. It deepened him, refined him, made him more like the one who speaks these blessings. All around the hillside, the merciful listen, some with hands trembling, some with eyes lowered, some with hearts so tired of carrying compassion that they feel they might break. And yet, in the presence of Jesus, mercy becomes something strong and radiant, not fragile, not naive. Mercy becomes a reflection of divine love moving through human hearts, a slow river of healing weaving through the world one act at a time. The air seems to thicken with the softness of the moment. Even the wind quiets, as if unwilling to disturb the sacred stillness settling over the crowd. Olive branches sway gently above, leaves whispering in a language only creation understands. Sunlight spills across the slopes, turning strands of grass into threads of gold. The ground beneath them holds steady, as though cradling every sorrow, every hope, every unspoken longing. Jesus gazes over the faces before him, his eyes filled with a depth that sees past outward appearances, past the noise of life, past the masks people wear when the world has been unkind. He sees the mercy hidden in ordinary days, the compassion shown in moments no one else witnessed, the forgiveness whispered in solitude, the patient endurance that kept the heart soft when it would have been easier to harden. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. The phrase moves slowly, like water flowing into dry soil, filling cracks that have long needed healing. It is not a transaction, not a promise that mercy must be earned. It is an affirmation of how the heart is shaped by compassion, how mercy opens a door through which more mercy can enter, a cycle of tenderness, a circle of divine generosity, a reflection of God's own boundless kindness. For the tired soul listening tonight, the blessing speaks gently. It tells the heart that every time mercy felt costly, heaven took note. Every time compassion drained strength, God drew nearer. Every time forgiveness seemed impossible, grace was already working quietly below the surface, softening the soil, preparing the way for healing. Let your breathing ease again now. A slow inhale, comforting, steady. A long exhale, releasing the weight of every moment your mercy felt unnoticed. Feel the softness settle over your shoulders, like warm fabric placed with care. Feel the gentleness wrap around your spirit, inviting rest, inviting surrender, inviting peace. Mercy is not a small gift. It is the reflection of God passing through human hands. It is the fragrance of heaven drifting into the world. It is the quiet miracle that mends wounds no one else can see. And those who carry mercy, even when weary, even when misunderstood, walk in the sacred footsteps of the one who heals with compassion. So rest now in the blessing that has been spoken. Rest knowing that the mercy you have offered will return to you in ways you cannot yet imagine. Rest knowing that heaven honors every gentle act, every patient choice, every moment your heart chose compassion over judgment. Let the hillside surround you once more. Let the blessings drift like soft light across your mind. Let the peace of this moment anchor you, calm you, cradle you. The hillside settles into a deeper quiet, as though the earth itself is listening, as though every stone and blade of grass holds its breath beneath the weight of the blessings. And into this gentle stillness, another truth rises, tender, steady, shaped for the hearts that have known sorrow more intimately than they ever wished. Blessed are those who mourn. The words drift like a soft veil over the gathering. They do not fall sharply. They do not stir fear. Instead they settle with the gentleness of dusk light touching the rim of a distant valley. Some in the crowd lower their heads, not from shame, but because grief is a heavy companion, and hearing it named aloud opens a door in the heart that has been closed for far too long. There is a woman near the back, her fingers twisting the edge of her shawl. Her eyes hold the quiet ache of someone who has lost more than she ever speaks of. She remembers laughter that once filled her home, remembers footsteps that no longer echo in the doorway, remembers the voice she loved that has fallen silent in the grave. Her mourning lives deep within, a river that runs beneath everything she does. She listens now, hardly daring to breathe, hardly daring to believe that her sorrow could be seen. Yet when Jesus speaks the blessing, something warm spreads through her chest, like a hand resting over her heart, telling her she has not been forgotten. A man a few steps away carries mourning of a different kind. He grieves the mistakes he cannot undo. He grieves the harsh words he once spoke, the ones that wounded those he cherished. He grieves the years lost to fear, to anger, to pride. His sorrow is not for someone who has died, but for the version of himself he wishes he could have been. When the blessing reaches him, he feels his breath catch, as though the weight he has carried for so long is being gently recognized, gently named, gently lifted from the shadows. Farther up the slope, a young person sits with knees drawn close. They mourn dreams that never came to pass, opportunities that slipped through their fingers, seasons of life that felt barren when others seemed to flourish. They mourn the quiet disappointments, the silent griefs no one else knows. The words "blessed are those who mourn" speak directly to the hidden chamber of their heart, the place where unspoken sadness lives, and as the blessing settles, they feel the first hint of comfort, like a soft light flickering through the cracks of a long-closed door. Around the hillside, mourning takes many shapes. Some grieve people, some grieve moments, some grieve disappointments, some grieve themselves. All of them, in the soft gaze of Jesus, discover that mourning is not a failure of faith, but a sign of love, a sign that the heart has cared deeply, poured itself out, allowed itself to feel rather than turning numb. Comfort will come, not always quickly, not always in the way the world understands, but comfort will come like morning after a long night, slowly brightening the edges, slowly warming the cold places, slowly revealing beauty that grief had covered. The ground beneath them seems to pulse with quiet strength, as if the earth itself whispers, "You're not alone." Olive trees sway gently above the mourners, their branches moving like arms offering shelter. A soft breeze curls through the crowd, carrying scents of wild rosemary and distant water, a reminder that life continues even in seasons of sorrow. Light spills over the hillside in golden threads, touching every face with tender warmth, honoring every tear, every longing, every ache. Jesus looks out at them, not with pity, not with impatience, but with a depth of compassion that sees every wound, every unspoken story, every silent night the heart has endured. He sees the woman who mourns her child. He sees the man who mourns a broken past. He sees the lonely soul who mourns lost dreams. He sees grief that the world overlooks, grief that feels too heavy to carry alone, grief that bends the shoulders and quiets the voice. And he calls them blessed. Because mourning opens a door to divine presence, because grief softens the soul to receive comfort, because those who mourn know the tenderness of God more intimately than those who have never wept. For the heart listening tonight, this blessing is a gentle invitation to let grief breathe, to let sorrow be acknowledged, to let mourning unfold without shame, and to trust that comfort is not a distant promise, but a companion already walking toward you, soft footfalls on holy ground. Take a slow breath now. Inhale, letting the air fill the places that feel tight. Exhale, letting a little of the heaviness slip away. You do not need to be strong in this moment. You do not need to hold everything together. The blessing over the mourners wraps around you like a warm shawl placed on weary shoulders. Let it cradle your sorrow. Let it soothe your spirit. Let it remind you that the God who spoke comfort on the hillside speaks comfort over you tonight. Let your body grow a little heavier. Let your mind rest lightly. Let every exhale carry away one small layer of the day's weight. Grief is not a mark of weakness. It is the sign of a heart that has loved deeply, and the promise of a comfort that will meet you in every valley. The hillside breathes with the quiet rhythm of the crowd, sorrow softening, mercy deepening, meekness beginning to feel like strength rather than weakness, and into this tender stillness, another blessing rises, shaped for the hearts that long for goodness, truth, and wholeness with an ache that never fully goes away. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. The words move gently, but with a deeper resonance, like the low hum of distant water flowing beneath the earth. They touch those who have carried a longing for a life more aligned with God, for a world that reflects kindness, justice, truth. They touch those who look at their own hearts and whisper prayers for change, for healing, for freedom from the things that weigh their spirits down. A young man sits near the middle of the hillside, hands resting loosely over his knees, eyes fixed on the speaker. His spirit has long hungered for what is right. He has sought God in early mornings and late nights. He has prayed for strength to walk away from old patterns. He has asked for forgiveness for the mistakes that cling like shadows. He has tried, failed, tried again, and though he seldom speaks of it, his heart carries a deep ache, a thirst to be the person God created him to be. As Jesus speaks this blessing, hunger and longing rise in him like a tide, not painful, but tender, awakening. It feels like the first sip of cool water after a long walk under a burning sun, a quiet reassurance that God sees his effort, sees his desire, sees the yearning for righteousness that shapes every hidden prayer. Nearby, an older woman listens with a different kind of hunger. She hungers for righteousness in her community, for fairness where there has been corruption, for compassion where judgment has been quick, for healing where brokenness has endured for years. She has watched neighbors struggle, families fracture, hearts grow distant. She has prayed for renewal as faithfully as one tends a garden. and though many seasons have passed without visible change, she has never stopped believing that goodness will rise again. As the blessing touches her, tears brim in her eyes, not tears of despair, but tears of recognition, tears of knowing that the God who hears every whispered plea for justice, every quiet prayer for change, is near, nearer than she has ever imagined. A child sits cross-legged beside her father, barely old enough to understand the words, but old enough to feel their softness, their hope. His small heart hungers for kindness. He notices when others are hurt. He offers his bread even when he has little. His thirst for righteousness is instinctive, pure, untouched by pride, and Jesus sees him, sees the simplicity, the sincerity, the openness that hungers for what is good without complication, without pretense. The hillside becomes a mirror for all kinds of hunger, hunger for a world healed from cruelty, hunger for hearts freed from shame, hunger for a life lived in alignment with truth, hunger for peace where conflict has long overshadowed love. This hunger is holy, this thirst is seen, and the one who promises satisfaction speaks with gentle certainty: they will be filled. Not filled with fleeting pleasures, not filled with the shallow rewards the world gives, but filled with peace that steadies the soul, filled with goodness that anchors the heart, filled with grace that washes every weary place clean, filled with God's own presence, flowing into the dry, cracked places like cool water entering a thirsty land. A breeze sweeps across the hillside, lifting strands of hair, stirring loose fabric, carrying the scents of wild thyme and warm earth. It brushes lightly across the skin, refreshing, awakening, almost as though the wind itself carries the promise of being filled. The listeners breathe deeper, lungs expanding with air that feels gentler, almost sweeter. The ache inside them, the yearning that once felt heavy, begins to feel like something beautiful, something that God honors, something that draws heaven close. Jesus stands with calm strength, his voice steady, his presence quiet but unmistakably full. He speaks not as one offering a distant hope, but as one who knows the heart's deepest hunger intimately, who understands the thirst that exists beneath every longing, every desire for what is right. He sees the hidden battles, the silent striving, the quiet prayers offered when no one else is awake. He sees the fatigue of those who have tried again and again to choose good, even when temptation pressed close. He sees the discouragement of those who long for righteousness in their families, in their communities, in their world, and he blesses them, calling their hunger holy, their thirst sacred. For the heart listening tonight, this blessing may feel familiar. There are places within you that ache for healing, places that long for goodness to rise, places that thirst for clarity, for peace, for renewal. These longings are not burdens, they are invitations, guiding you toward the one who fills, the one who restores, the one who satisfies thirst with living water. Breathe slowly now, inhale with gentle intention, letting the air enter deeply, exhale with softness, releasing any heaviness wrapped around your hunger for what is good. Let the breath remind you that God meets you in your longing. Let the breath remind you that hunger is not emptiness, it is preparation, it is readiness, it is the soul's quiet way of reaching toward the light. Rest a little deeper, settle a little more fully into stillness. You do not need to solve everything tonight. You do not need to earn the filling that God promises. Simply rest in the truth that your longing for righteousness, your yearning for goodness, is seen, honored, and already being met with a love that satisfies every thirst. The hillside glows beneath the widening morning light, soft golden beams settling gently across the gathering, illuminating the faces turned toward the one who blesses with quiet authority. And into this tender radiance, another blessing rises, gentle as a whisper carried through olive branches. Blessed are the pure in heart. The words move delicately, like sunlight filtering through the leaves above, casting patterns of light that dance softly upon the ground. They touch something deep within the listeners, something fragile, something sacred. For purity of heart is not perfection, not flawlessness, not a life untouched by mistakes. It is sincerity, honesty, a heart that seeks God even through its stumbling, a spirit that longs for truth even when surrounded by shadows. A young girl sits on the hillside, her hands cupped in her lap, her eyes wide with quiet wonder. Her heart is open and simple, not pretending, not calculating, not weighed down by the complexities that come with age. She listens with a stillness that only the very young possess, absorbing every word like soft rain falling on fresh soil. When Jesus speaks of the pure in heart, her gaze lifts slightly, as though something within her recognizes the blessing without needing explanation. Her purity is not something she strives for. It is something that flows naturally from innocence, from trust, from a spirit unburdened by fear. Nearby sits a man whose purity has not come easily. He has lived long enough to know regret, to know failure, to know the ache of choices he wishes he could undo. But he has also known what it means to turn back toward God, again and again, to offer his flaws honestly, without hiding, to let divine grace wash him clean like a river washing silt from stone. His heart is no longer innocent, but it is sincere, weathered but honest, humbled, yet open, and Jesus calls such a heart pure. A woman sits with fingers lightly pressed together, eyes closed as she listens. She knows the temptation to appear righteous before others. She has lived through seasons when she cared more about being seen as good than actually being good. But over the years, God has gently peeled away the layers of performance, leaving behind a heart that desires authenticity above approval, truth above appearance. Her purity is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of honesty in the midst of it. And the blessing washes over her with a peace she has not felt in a long time. All across the hillside, purity of heart takes different shapes. For some, it is the simplicity of childlike trust. For others, it is the courage to confess faults and return to the light. For others still, it is the slow, patient work of letting God cleanse motives, soften pride, and refine the hidden places within. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. The promise drifts over the crowd like a soft breeze. Not see God with physical eyes, but see God in everything, in the rising of the sun, in the generosity of mercy, in the quiet acts of love, in the unexpected kindness of strangers, in the stillness that fills a room after prayer, in the gentle nudge of peace that settles after choosing truth. To see God is to perceive His presence woven through the fabric of ordinary life, to sense His nearness in silence, to feel His comfort in sorrow, to recognize His goodness in moments the world would overlook. Purity of heart sharpens spiritual sight, clearing away the haze of fear, pride, and distraction, revealing God not as distant, but as intimately near, near in breath, near in thought, near in every quiet step. The listeners breathe deeply now, their hearts opening like flowers in soft light. A little more trust enters the space, a little more hope. The hillside becomes a sanctuary not built by human hands, but carved out of stillness and longing and divine presence. The olive trees sway in slow rhythm, their shadows shifting gently across the ground like soft hands moving in blessing. Jesus stands with a calm that radiates through the entire gathering. His gaze moves from face to face, not with judgment, but with tenderness. He sees the hidden sincerity in each heart, the desire to do good, the quiet longing to be clean of every burden, every fear, every failure. He sees the journey each soul has walked. He sees the battles fought in silence. He sees the moments of repentance, the sighs of surrender, the whispered prayers spoken in the dark. And He calls purity not an achievement, but a posture, not a standard, but a relationship, not a badge of honor, but a window through which God's light enters. For the heart listening tonight, this blessing may feel like a gentle pull, a reminder that God is not asking for perfection. He is inviting sincerity, inviting openness, inviting the kind of honesty that allows Him to draw near. Purity of heart grows slowly, steadily, like clear water finding its way through layered stone. It forms not through force, but through surrender, not through trying harder, but through resting deeper in grace. Breathe softly now. Let air enter the lungs with ease. Let it leave with an unhurried sigh. With every exhale, imagine a veil lifting, revealing a little more light, a little more clarity, a little more peace. Feel the inner space widen gently, making room for God's nearness, making room for comfort, for truth, for stillness. Let the world grow quieter around you. Let the hillside unfold in your imagination. Let the blessings settle like soft light over your spirit. The pure in heart will see God, not someday, but in the gentle moments where the soul opens and the presence of the holy becomes impossible to miss. The hillside holds a deeper hush now, as if every blessing spoken so far has softened the air, loosened the weight in weary hearts, and opened something tender within the gathering. And into this softened stillness, another blessing begins to rise, gentle as dawn, steady as footsteps on a quiet path. Blessed are the peacemakers. The words drift over the crowd like a calm breeze moving through tall grass. They do not stir excitement, they stir recognition. For the ones who make peace often do it quietly, invisibly, without applause. And yet, when Jesus speaks this blessing, it is as though a hidden group among the listeners suddenly becomes illuminated. Their quiet sacrifice is seen, honored, lifted into the light. A man sits near the center, broad-shouldered, hands that once knew how to clench into fists. He remembers a younger version of himself, filled with anger, quick to react, eager to win every argument. But over time, through loss and learning, something in him began to soften. He began to value peace more than pride. He learned to step back rather than escalate. He learned to breathe before responding. His strength did not disappear, it became gentler. And though the world rarely notices such transformations, Jesus sees him, and the blessing lands on him like a warm hand laid gently across his back. Beside him sits a woman who has spent years stitching together fractured relationships. She has stood in doorways where conflict raged, speaking softly. She has held friends through misunderstandings, offered forgiveness before it was asked for, opened her home when others refused to meet face to face. Many nights she cried in private, wondering if her efforts mattered, wondering if peace was even possible. But she never stopped trying, never stopped believing that reconciliation was worth the ache. Hearing blessed are the peacemakers, her eyes close, and her breath trembles with quiet relief. For the first time, she feels the weight of her calling honored not by people, but by heaven. A young boy sits nearby, too small to break up adult disputes, but old enough to notice when others are hurting. He shares his bread when others have none. He sits beside children who feel left out. He chooses kind words even when others tease. His peace is simple, instinctive, pure. He does not know that his tiny acts ripple outward like circles in water, but Jesus sees them, sees how even a child can become a carrier of peace, how small acts build gentle bridges in the hearts of those around him. Across the hillside, countless stories of peace begin to stir. The sibling who apologized first, the neighbor who refused to gossip, the friend who held their tongue instead of firing back, the parent who comforted quietly instead of scolding, the worker who chose patience over anger, the soul who prayed for those who wronged them, even when it hurt. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. The promise pours over the crowd like warm light. To be a child of God is to resemble Him, and God is peace. He heals, He restores, He draws near to the brokenhearted. He rebuilds what is shattered. Every small act of peace, every gentle gesture, becomes a reflection of his heart, a mirror of his quiet strength, a sign that his spirit is moving through human hands. The olive branches above the crowd sway slowly, their movements soft and rhythmic, like hands brushing lightly across the surface of water. Birdsong weaves faintly through the air, simple, unhurried. The sky stretches wide and pale, holding a soft diffused light that settles gently on every upturned face. It feels as though creation itself is echoing the blessing, inviting peace, cradling peace, breathing peace. Jesus stands among them, not with force, not with demands, but with a calm presence that makes rebellion seem unnecessary, conflict feel smaller, fear lose some of its power. He does not praise those who dominate, those who win arguments, those who control. He blesses those who heal, those who forgive, those who seek understanding instead of victory, those who soften the ground where hard edges once clashed, those who plant seeds where others only saw dry soil. For the heart listening tonight, this blessing may touch a tender place. Perhaps you have carried tension with someone. Perhaps you have tried to mend a relationship that resisted healing. Perhaps you have chosen silence over escalation, compassion over pride, patience over retaliation. Perhaps you have longed for peace in your home, your friendships, your own heart. Peacemaking often feels lonely, often feels unseen, often feels as though you are giving more than you receive. And yet, Jesus calls such efforts holy, calls such hearts his own, calls such steps reflections of divine love. Let yourself breathe gently now, a slow inhale, soft, steady, a long exhale, loosening tension stored in the chest, the shoulders, the jaw. Feel the air move like a quiet river through your body. Let the breath remind you that peace begins in stillness, begins with softness, begins with a heart willing to release what it cannot control and hold lightly what it can. Let the imagined hillside surround you with its calm. Let the olive branches sway above your thoughts. Let the blessings settle upon you like sunlight warming your skin. You do not need to resolve everything tonight. You do not need to mend every broken thing in this single breath. Simply rest in the truth that the one who blesses peacemakers walks with you, strengthens you, sustains you, and calls your gentle steps precious in his sight. The hillside grows quieter still, as though each blessing adds another layer of softness to the morning air, another veil of calm over weary hearts, another breath of heaven settling gently upon the earth. And into this deep and tender stillness, a harder blessing begins to rise, one spoken not to the comfortable, but to the hurting. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. The words do not fall lightly, they move slowly, with weight, like a stone lowered gently into water, sending ripples outward through the crowd. For this blessing touches those who have been misunderstood, those who have been judged for choosing kindness, those who have suffered because they followed what was right instead of what was easy. A young man sits on the lower slope, his eyes lowered, his hands folded tightly together. He has known the sharp edge of ridicule. Friends who once walked beside him now laugh behind his back. People who once admired him now question his choices. All because he chose integrity over approval, compassion over cruelty, truth over crowd. He has walked alone more nights than he can count, feeling the sting of rejection like cold wind against bare skin. When Jesus speaks this blessing, something deep inside him shifts, not all at once, not like sudden fire, but like a warm ember glowing back to life inside a space that has grown dim. Near him, a woman sits with her hands resting quietly in her lap. She has felt the pressure of expectations heavy upon her shoulders. She has refused to participate in gossip, and lost friends for it. She has spoken gently when others demanded harshness. She has chosen forgiveness even when the world encouraged anger. And though she never speaks of it aloud, she sometimes wonders if her choices make her strange, if her gentleness sets her apart in ways she never asked for. When the blessing touches her heart, Her breath trembles softly. For the first time, she feels seen, not only by the one who blesses, but by heaven itself. Farther up the hillside, an elderly man sits with his back slightly bent, his face lined with years of endurance. He remembers seasons when he stood alone for what was right, times when speaking truth cost him friendships, times when compassion made him vulnerable, times when choosing goodness left him isolated. He has carried these memories like quiet scars, not seeking pity, not seeking recognition, simply continuing on the path he believed God placed before him. The blessing meets him like an old friend, a reassurance that the lonely path was not walked alone, that the losses he endured were seen, that the courage he showed in secret was honored by heaven. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The promise settles over the crowd like a warm weight, not a burden, but a mantle, not an obligation, but an inheritance. The kingdom of heaven belongs to those who stand gently but firmly for love, for truth, for compassion, for light, even when darkness presses in. A breeze sweeps across the hillside, cooler now, but gentle. It stirs loose strands of hair, lifts pieces of fabric, carries the scent of earth warmed slowly by the rising sun. It moves like comfort, like understanding, like the hands of God drawing near to those who have suffered quietly. The listeners close their eyes, breathing in the soft wind, letting it move through them like peace, like reassurance, like a steadying presence. Jesus looks upon the crowd with deep tenderness. He sees the wounds hidden behind polite smiles. He sees the nights spent feeling alone. He sees the tears wiped away before anyone noticed. He sees the sacrifices made in secret. He sees the ridicule endured quietly. He sees the heavy silence that falls when righteousness feels costly. And he calls these hearts blessed, not for their suffering, but for the love that remains steadfast in the midst of it, for the gentleness that refused to break, for the mercy that continued to flow, for the trust that held on to God even when human approval slipped away. To those listening tonight, this blessing may touch a place you rarely acknowledge. Perhaps you have been misunderstood for choosing kindness. Perhaps you have been judged for choosing calm over chaos. Perhaps you have been called weak for walking gently. Perhaps you have lost closeness with others because your heart longed for purity, truth, mercy. Perhaps you have felt alone in your desire to live a life shaped by God's quiet strength. Let this blessing settle into you now, not to glorify suffering, but to remind your spirit that God sees the battles you fought silently. He sees the moments you stood for what was right even when your voice trembled. He sees the nights you cried because kindness cost you something precious. He sees every quiet moment of courage that the world overlooked. Take a slow breath. Let it fill you softly. Let it leave you gently. With each inhale, imagine the promise of heaven drawing near. With each exhale, release the idea that you are alone in your gentle convictions. You are not. The kingdom of heaven belongs to those who carry courage in tender ways, to those whose love persists, to those who choose light even in the presence of shadow. Let the hillside surround you again. Let the air grow still around your thoughts. Let your heart rest in the truth that suffering for righteousness is never unseen, never forgotten, never wasted. Heaven holds your story with tenderness. Heaven honors your quiet strength. Heaven draws near to your gentle endurance. The hillside rests beneath the gentle rise of the morning sun, its light softening the shadows, its warmth draping quietly across the gathering like a tender embrace. And as the blessings continue to unfold, the atmosphere deepens into something sacred, something hushed, something that feels almost like the air itself is holding its breath in reverence. Now, Jesus speaks a blessing that reaches into the personal struggles of each heart, the unseen battles, the quiet tears. Blessed are you. The shift is subtle, but powerful, no longer a general blessing spoken over groups. This moment becomes intimate, direct, personal. Blessed are you when others revile you, persecute you, and speak all kinds of evil against you falsely. The words move slowly, with a gentleness that refuses to add weight to those already burdened. They do not land with sharpness, but with understanding, with the compassion of one who knows exactly how it feels to be misunderstood, rejected, spoken against. A blessing spoken not to shame the hurting, but to lift them, steady them, honor them. A young woman sits near the back, her shoulders slightly rounded, as though years of quiet judgment have pressed them downward. She remembers moments when her kindness was mocked, when her decisions for integrity were labeled foolish, when her quiet faith was questioned by those who never understood its strength. She has carried these wounds silently, not wanting to burden anyone, not wanting to stir conflict. But when Jesus says, "Blessed are you," her heart stirs, not in pride, but in recognition, as if the blessing finds her hidden place and whispers gently, "I see you." A man sits farther down the hill, his hands clasped in his lap. He has walked away from old circles that encouraged harm. He has chosen honesty even when it cost him status. He has refused to speak cruelly even when cruelty was expected. And for these choices, he has been ridiculed, pushed to the margins. People spoke behind his back. People assumed the worst without ever asking. Yet tonight, in the presence of Jesus, those heavy memories begin to soften. For the blessing acknowledges his pain, acknowledges the cost, acknowledges the courage it took to remain gentle in a world that demanded hardness. A young boy sits between his parents, too small to understand all the nuances, but old enough to know what it feels like when others say unkind things. He remembers being teased for choosing compassion. He remembers being pushed aside for refusing to fight. He remembers crying in secret because the world felt too sharp for his soft heart. As the blessing drifts over him, he leans lightly against his mother's shoulder, not fully understanding, but sensing a deep comfort in the sound of Jesus' voice, as if some part of him knows, even now, that kindness is never wasted, that gentleness is never weakness. All across the hillside, hearts open quietly. People remember the moments when they were unfairly accused, when untrue words pierced deeply, when choices made from love were met with suspicion, when silence felt safer than explaining themselves again. And as these memories rise, the blessing wraps around them like a warm shawl. Blessed are you. Blessed not because suffering is good, but because God is near the misunderstood. He stands with the gentle-hearted. He gathers the wounded close. He honors those who endure hurt without letting bitterness take root. Rejoice and be glad, for great is your reward in heaven. The words float softly through the air, not demanding joy, not forcing celebration. They offer comfort, a reminder that heaven sees what humans overlook, a reminder that unseen endurance is precious in the kingdom of God, a reminder that the hurt inflicted by others does not diminish the soul. Rather, it deepens it, strengthens it, refines it. And in heaven's eyes, such endurance is radiant. A breeze brushes through the crowd, cool and reassuring, carrying the scent of warm earth and wildflowers. It moves like a gentle companion, resting briefly on shoulders, lifting the edges of cloaks, weaving through the gathering with a calming rhythm. The listeners breathe in slowly, letting the air fill the spaces where memories once stung, letting the exhale release a portion of the heaviness they carried unseen. Jesus' gaze softens as he looks over them. He sees the pain beneath polite smiles, sees the courage beneath trembling hearts, sees the sacrifice beneath silence, sees the nights when their spirits felt bruised by the words of others, and his blessing becomes a balm, a quiet promise that heaven is woven into their struggle, that God draws closer when others speak falsely, that divine comfort wraps itself around the faithful, even when no human comfort comes. For the heart listening tonight, This blessing may awaken memories you rarely revisit. Moments when others misunderstood your goodness. Moments when your gentleness was mocked. Moments when false words felt heavier than truth. Moments when you cried quietly because the world felt too sharp for your spirit. Let this blessing reach those tender places. Let it touch them with gentleness. Let it wash them with comfort. Let it remind you that your value has never depended on the opinions of others. Your dignity remains untouched by their unkindness. Your worth rests securely in the one who sees your heart completely. Take a slow, steady breath. Let it fill you gently. Let it fall away like a soft sigh. With each inhale, imagine grace entering the places where unkind words once touched. With each exhale, release the idea that you must carry the weight of those moments alone. You are held, seen, cherished by the God who walks with the misunderstood, and His blessing rests over you like soft morning light. Let yourself sink deeper into the quiet. Let the hillside surround you. Let the blessing settle across your heart like warm fabric. You're not alone in your quiet battles. Heaven stands beside you. Heaven honors you. Heaven calls you blessed. The hillside rests beneath a widening glow, the sun now rising higher, yet still wrapped in a softness that does not startle or overwhelm. Each blessing spoken so far has settled like layers of gentle light, weaving comfort into weary spirits. And now, as the gathered hearts breathe more slowly, more deeply, Jesus speaks a truth that reaches into the quietest chambers within them, a truth meant for the humble, the lowly, the ones who walk softly through the world. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The phrase drifts like a hush over the hillside, not heavy, not sharp, but tender, like a hand smoothing the hair of someone who is tired, someone who has carried more than they could say. It speaks to those who know their need, those who understand the fragility of their own strength, those who approach God not with pride, but with open hands, empty hands, longing hands. A man sits near the front, shoulders sloped slightly inward, as though life has bent him over time. He has known responsibility that pressed upon him like weight. He has known nights spent awake, whispering prayers into darkness, asking for guidance, asking for help. He has carried burdens alone that no one else understood, and somewhere along the way, his spirit learned humility, learned dependence, learned to bow low not out of defeat, but out of trust. When Jesus speaks, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," something warm lifts through his chest, a quiet recognition, a deep assurance, as though the blessing is wrapping around his weary ribcage, supporting it, strengthening it, holding it gently from within. He has felt small many times, but never cherished. Now, for the first time, he feels honored in his smallness, for the kingdom of heaven is not a place for the proud, it is a home for the humble. A young woman nearby closes her eyes, her breath trembling as the words wash over her. She has long believed she was not enough, not strong enough, not wise enough, not spiritual enough. Her heart has often felt inadequate, as though she must fix herself before God could look upon her with love. But as the blessing curls around her spirit, she feels her shoulders soften. She realizes that God does not ask her to be strong, He asks her to be open. And openness she has always had. Higher up the slope, a child sits with legs tucked beneath him. He is small in stature, smaller still in confidence, often overshadowed by louder voices, often unsure of his place in the world. But when Jesus speaks of the poor in spirit, promising them the kingdom, the child's eyes widen, not with pride, but with wonder, as though something deep within him whispers, "The kingdom is for you too." All around the hillside, humility takes different shapes. For some, it is quiet self-awareness. For others, it is the courage to admit helplessness. For others still, it is the simple trust that God is God, and they are held, not by their own strength, but by His. The breeze moves gently through the gathering, softer now, brushing against cheeks and brows like a comforting touch. Olive branches sway with long, slow movements. Their shadows flicker delicately across the ground. The air feels warm, but not heavy. The hillside becomes a sanctuary, shaped not by stone but by surrender, by trust, by the quiet beauty of lowly hearts. Jesus stands before them, his calm presence filling the space with peace. He does not look for the proud. He does not praise the powerful. He does not elevate the self-assured. He blesses the ones who know their need, the ones whose souls bow gently before God, the ones who do not pretend to be more than they are, the ones whose humility opens doors that pride keeps locked. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Not will be, but is, a present reality, a current belonging, a truth that wraps itself around their identity like a warm cloak. The lowly are lifted, the humble are held, those who know their need are closest to God's heart. For the heart listening tonight, this blessing may feel like a gentle unveiling. Perhaps you have felt small, diminished, overlooked. Perhaps you have felt unworthy of God's presence. Perhaps you have believed you must be stronger, more confident, more fixed, before God could accept you. Let this blessing speak softly into those places. God does not draw near to the impressive. He draws near to the open, the honest, the surrendered, the ones who whisper, "I need you," not as a weakness, but as truth. Take a slow breath. Inhale, letting gentle air fill the chest, expanding softly, comfortably. Exhale, letting a subtle warmth move down the spine, relaxing every strained place, every tense muscle. Let the breath remind you that you do not have to carry your spirit alone. You do not have to manufacture strength. You are already held by the one who promises the kingdom to those who simply come with open hands. Let the hillside rise around your imagination. Let the soft light rest across your face. Let the blessing settle deep into your spirit. You're not too small for God's love. You're not too fragile for His comfort. You're not too empty for His kingdom. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The hillside breathes with a gentleness that seems to deepen with every blessing. Each word spoken by Jesus settles into the soil, into the air, into the hearts gathered around Him, like soft rain sinking into thirsty ground. And now, the blessings begin to weave together, forming a tapestry of quiet strength, meekness, mercy, purity, peace, humility. All of these strands point towards something deeper, something the heart often resists yet longs for: the beauty of surrender. Jesus' voice moves through the crowd with a steady calm, not commanding, not demanding, but inviting, drawing each soul into a deeper posture of trust, of yielding, of releasing the weight they have carried for too long. A man sits near the front, his breathing slow, his eyes lowered as he listens. He has always believed strength meant pushing, holding, striving. He learned to carry burdens silently so others wouldn't worry. He believed he had to fix everything, make everything work, keep everyone safe. But inside, beneath the strong exterior, his spirit is tired, not from loving, but from never letting go, from never allowing himself to be held, from never trusting that God could be strong for him. As he listens to Jesus speak, his chest softens, not with weakness, but with a quiet recognition, a realization that surrender is not collapse, it is rest, it is release, it is the gentle courage of letting God be God. Nearby, a woman closes her eyes, letting the words drift into the deepest places of her heart. She has spent years gripping tightly to the pieces of her life, afraid that if she loosened her hold, everything would fall apart. She has clung to plans, expectations, wounds from long ago. Surrender felt impossible, too risky, too uncertain. But as the blessings unfold, she feels something shifting within, not a dramatic moment, but the beginning of a soft unraveling, a willingness to let breath move freely. willingness to let her spirit rest instead of strain, a willingness to trust that letting go does not mean losing, it means being carried. Farther up the slope, an older man sits with his hands folded gently. He has lived long enough to know the weight of regret. He has clung to mistakes, replaying them on quiet nights, grasped at moments he wished he could redo, held tightly to sorrow for fear that releasing it might dishonor what he lost. But as Jesus speaks, he realizes that surrender is not forgetting. It is giving God permission to heal, to mend, to breathe comfort into spaces grief once filled entirely. All around the hillside, surrender takes different shapes. For some, it is loosening their grip on fear. For others, it is releasing the need for control. For others, it is letting go of bitterness. For others still, it is simply breathing deeply for the first time in a long time. Jesus stands among them, radiating calm. His presence itself is a picture of surrender. He does not cling to worldly power. He does not fight for attention. He does not push, demand, or strive. He moves with a quiet confidence that rests entirely in the Father's will, and in him, they see a strength that does not crumble, a peace that is not shaken, a trust that remains steady in all things. This is the kind of surrender the blessings invite, not passive, not resigned, but gently open, willing to rest in God's care, willing to lay down the weapons of worry, willing to loosen the fists clenched around old pain, willing to breathe deeply in the knowledge that they are loved beyond measure. The breeze curls through the gathering, moving softly through strands of hair, brushing lightly over cheeks. Its coolness refreshes the warm morning air, its rhythm steady, soothing. It feels like a whisper from heaven itself, encouraging hearts to release, to rest, to yield. Even the olive trees sway more slowly, their branches moving in long, graceful motions, as though they too surrender to the wind's gentle touch. For the heart listening tonight, this blessing reaches you tenderly. Perhaps you have carried something heavy for far too long. Perhaps you have held tightly to a fear, a memory, a responsibility. Perhaps letting go feels dangerous, or impossible, or unfamiliar. Let this moment be a gentle invitation, not to drop everything in an instant, but to loosen your grip just a little, to breathe out slowly, to allow God into the spaces you've guarded, to trust that surrendering does not remove strength, it restores it. Take a slow, quiet breath. Inhale, letting air travel into the places within you that feel tight. Exhale, letting a small weight slip from your shoulders, even if only for a moment. Notice how the body softens with permission, how the spirit calms when it is not fighting, how surrender can begin not with dramatic change, but with a single breath. The hillside waits with you, the blessings rest upon you, the one who spoke them stands beside you, and in this sacred stillness, surrender becomes not something to fear, but something to trust, something that leads the soul into deeper peace, deeper rest, deeper intimacy with God. Let the light settle over you, soft, steady, warm. Let the ground beneath you feel firm, safe, supportive. Let the truth sink gently into your spirit. Strength grows where surrender is allowed to bloom. Peace flows where the heart yields its heavy burdens. Love enters where walls begin to lower. The hillside rests beneath a warming light, the sun now climbing gently across the sky, yet nothing in its brightness feels harsh. Instead, it spreads like a soft blessing over every bowed head, every open heart, every quiet soul leaning into the presence of Jesus, and into this sacred calm, a new tenderness begins to rise, a blessing that moves like water, healing, cleansing, restoring what sorrow once hollowed out, the blessing of mercy flowing in and flowing out. For blessed are the merciful, and in this moment, mercy becomes more than a virtue, it becomes a breath, a rhythm, an exchange of divine tenderness moving between heaven and earth. A woman sits on the hillside, her hands resting lightly over her heart. She has offered mercy to others more times than she can count. She has forgiven before apologies were spoken. She has comforted those who hurt her. She has carried burdens that were not her own. And though her compassion has brought healing to many, she has often felt empty afterward, poured out, unseen, forgotten. But now, as Jesus continues to speak, she feels something gentle and unexpected, a warmth rising from the center of her chest, like sunlight reaching into a cold room, a sense that mercy is not something she must endlessly give, it is something she is meant to receive, something God longs to pour back into her, filling every place where she has been drained, every place where kindness cost her more than she admitted, every place where tenderness felt unreturned. Nearby, a man sits with his shoulders lowered, feeling the blessing surround him like a soft cloak. He remembers the times he withheld mercy, times when anger felt easier, times when bitterness felt safer, times when he built walls instead of bridges. He remembers the heaviness that settled afterward, the ache that lingered, and as he listens now, he feels something loosening, not guilt, not shame, but an opening, a gentle invitation to let mercy return to him, to allow compassion to heal his own hardened places, to let the blessing of forgiveness wash through him like a slow-moving river, smoothing the rough edges inside. A young girl sits cross-legged, her face turned upward. Her heart knows mercy in its simplest form. She comforts friends when they cry. She shares what little she has. She cries when others are hurt, even if she is not the one injured. Her mercy is instinctive, effortless, as natural as breathing. And Jesus sees her, sees how purity and compassion intertwine, sees how her small acts hold great power in the kingdom of heaven. All around the hillside, mercy takes on its many shapes, forgiveness offered in whispers, comfort given quietly, restraint shown in moments of anger, gentle words spoken when harshness was expected, prayers lifted for those who caused harm, tears shed for the suffering of strangers. Every act of compassion becomes a thread, weaving hearts closer to God, weaving healing through wounded places, weaving hope where despair once lived. And Jesus continues to let mercy flow outward, not as a command, not as a requirement, but as a blessing that returns to the giver, as surely as rain returns to the sea, as surely as light returns each morning, the merciful will be shown mercy. These words move like water filling low places, flowing into cracks, softening hardened ground, bringing life where dryness once settled. A soft breeze curls through the gathering, carrying the scent of blooming herbs, wild blossoms, warm earth. It feels like a gentle sigh from creation itself, breathing mercy across the hillside. The listeners breathe with it, slow, steady, releasing what once clenched tight, allowing tenderness to flow freely, allowing forgiveness to rise like warm air lifting a bird's wings. Jesus' gaze sweeps across them, seeing every wound that mercy has touched, seeing every scar softened by compassion, seeing every tear shed in the quiet places, seeing every heart that dared to remain gentle in a world that often rewards the opposite. His blessing becomes a balm, a quiet affirmation that mercy does not drain the soul. It enriches it, deepens it, prepares it to receive even more from God. For the heart listening tonight, mercy may feel complicated. Perhaps you have given compassion until you felt empty. Perhaps you have withheld forgiveness because the wound felt too deep. Perhaps you have longed for someone to show mercy to you, but it never came. Let this moment soften those places. Let mercy flow back into your spirit, not forced, not rushed, but like a gentle stream returning to the place where it once began. Take a slow, tender breath. Inhale, letting the air fill the spaces where you once held hurt. Exhale, letting a small portion of that pain slip away. With each breath, imagine mercy entering your spirit like warm light, filling, healing, lifting. Imagine it washing over places hardened by disappointment. Imagine it soothing the soreness of old wounds. Imagine it resting on your heart with the tenderness of a mother placing a blanket over a sleeping child. Let the hillside hold you in its stillness. Let the olive branches sway gently above your thoughts. Let mercy become a quiet river flowing through you, receiving, giving, receiving again, a cycle of divine tenderness that never runs dry. The hillside glows beneath the gentle rise of the sun, its warmth spreading slowly, wrapping the gathering in a light that feels less like heat and more like a quiet blessing. Every word Jesus has spoken has softened the hearts around him, loosening old burdens, cleansing hidden wounds, awakening long-forgotten places of tenderness. And now, like the lifting of a thin veil, another truth begins to shimmer over the hillside, a blessing that speaks to the deep longing within every soul, the longing to see God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. The words drift through the air with a softness that feels almost weightless. They travel slowly, settling gently into the thoughts of those who hear them, not with pressure, not with demand, but with wonder, with promise, with the quiet unveiling of a truth too beautiful to rush. A young woman sits toward the front, hands resting lightly on her knees. She has spent years longing for clarity, longing to sense God's nearness, longing to understand his ways. Many nights she prayed with eyes closed, ears open, waiting for something unmistakable. But the moments she longed for often felt hidden, silent. She wondered if it was her heart that clouded her vision, wondered if she needed to try harder, be better, do more. Now, as Jesus speaks of purity of heart, something inside her eases, a softness rises from the center of her being. For she realizes purity is not perfection. Purity is openness, the willingness to come before God without pretending, without hiding, without performing, and in that openness, she begins to see, not with physical sight, but with a quiet awareness, a recognition of God's presence woven through every breath, every shift of the breeze, every warm ray of morning light. Beside her, an older man closes his eyes, letting the blessing wash over the years he has lived, years filled with mistakes and mending, years marked by regret and redemption, years shaped by both pain and grace. He once believed he needed a flawless heart to see God, but time has humbled him, softened him, and as the words settle into his spirit, he realizes that every time he sought forgiveness, every time he chose humility, every time he turned back to God with trembling sincerity, his heart was being purified, not scrubbed into perfection, but refined into truth, into honesty, into a softness that allows God's presence to become visible in the simplest moments. A child sits farther up the slope, his bright eyes reflecting morning light. His heart is clean in its innocence, unburdened by shame, unhardened by disappointment. He sees wonder everywhere, in birds taking flight, in shifting shadows, in drifting clouds, and Jesus sees him, sees how purity of heart allows him to see what others overlook, the divine hiding in the ordinary, holiness glimmering in simple things, God's presence alive in every breath. Around the hillside, purity takes many shapes, a heart that forgives quickly, a spirit that refuses to hold grudges, a soul that seeks truth even when truth is costly, a mind that releases bitterness, a will that bows gently to God's leading. Purity is not sterility, it is sincerity, the quiet willingness to be transparent before the one who knows every corner of the soul. And those who live with such openness, such softness, such honesty, will see God. Not in blazing visions, not always in grand miracles, but in subtlety, in the warmth after prayer, in the peace that enters during sorrow, in the courage that rises unexpectedly in moments of fear, in the beauty of sunlight falling across the ground, in the tenderness of a whispered forgiveness. in the stillness that fills a room when the heart finally releases its worries. The wind moves gently through the olive trees above. Branches sway as though nodding to the truth spoken. Shadows ripple across the hillside like waves moving over quiet water. The listeners breathe deeper, slower, as though their spirits are expanding, making room for the nearness of God they can now begin to feel. Jesus stands in the center of the gathering, his presence steady, calm, radiant without harshness. He does not force belief, he invites awareness. He does not lecture, he reveals. His words open the eyes of the heart, not with shock, but with gentleness, like dawn revealing the landscape slowly, lovingly, patiently. For the heart listening tonight, this blessing may awaken something deep within. Perhaps you have longed to see God, longed for signs, for clarity, for undeniable proof of his nearness. But purity of heart is not about receiving visions. It is about removing the barriers that cloud the soul. It is about releasing guilt, releasing fear, releasing judgment and old shame. It is about letting your spirit breathe freely so that God's presence becomes easier to notice. In the small moments, in the quiet places, in the gentle unfolding of daily life. Take a soft, slow breath now. Inhale, letting fresh air enter the deepest places within. Exhale, letting go of one small layer of heaviness. Feel the inner space widen. Feel the mind grow quieter. Feel the heart soften enough to sense God's nearness. Not far, not hidden, but here, wrapped gently around your breath, around your thoughts, around your very existence. Let the hillside rise once more in your imagination. Let the light touch your face. Let the blessing settle deep into your spirit. You're not far from seeing God. You're already closer than you know. For a pure heart does not earn God's presence. It perceives it, recognizes it, rests in it. The hillside rests in a deep, embracing stillness now. Each blessing Jesus has spoken has softened the ground beneath the listeners, loosened tight places in their spirits, widened the quiet within them, and into this gentle spaciousness, another truth begins to rise. Not sharp, not loud, but steady, tender, radiant. A truth meant for those who mend, those who soothe, those who walk into tension not to win, but to heal. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. The words drift through the air like soft ripples spreading across calm water. They move with a strength that is not forceful, a strength born of gentleness, a strength born of a heart aligned with the one who brings harmony wherever he walks. Across the hillside, the faces of peacemakers begin to lift, their eyes catching the morning light as though it recognizes them, honors them, embraces them. A woman sits near the middle, her hands loosely clasped. She has carried peace into arguments between neighbors. She has held her family together with quiet words spoken at the right moment. She has comforted friends who would not speak to each other. She has stepped into tension not with certainty, but with compassion, and though few ever thanked her, though her efforts often went unseen, hearing Jesus say blessed are the peacemakers draws tears to her lashes, for she realizes, perhaps for the first time, that her quiet work mirrors the heart of God, and heaven sees every moment she chose gentleness over pride. A man sits farther up the slope, his posture relaxed, his face softened by years of trying to bring calm into difficult spaces. He remembers countless moments when people shouted, when tempers rose, when words sharpened, and each time, he breathed slowly, chose patience, chose kindness, chose silence when silence soothed, spoke when words could mend. He never thought of himself as a peacemaker. He simply followed the tug inside him that longed for harmony. Now, hearing Jesus' blessing, he feels something warm unfold in his chest, a quiet recognition that he has been walking in the footsteps of his father all along. A child sits between two siblings, always the one trying to stop small quarrels. always the one offering his share when conflict arises. He leans lightly against his father, gazing at Jesus with wide, tender eyes. His innocence radiates peace without trying, and Jesus sees him. Sees the simplicity with which children reflect the gentleness of God. Sees how they bring harmony without calculation. Sees how peace flows through their small hands like light through still water. Around the hillside, stories of peace shimmer like threads catching sunlight. A soft-spoken apology, a hand offered after a misunderstanding, a long silence chosen instead of a sharp retort, a prayer whispered for someone who caused hurt, a gentle boundary drawn to prevent harm, a patient heart choosing compassion over anger. Every peacemaker carries an invisible crown, and in this moment, that crown glimmers quietly under the morning sun. For they will be called children of God, not merely followers, not merely believers, but children, those who resemble him, those whose spirits echo his nature, those whose footsteps leave behind healing instead of harm, those whose presence brings calm the way light brings clarity. The breeze stirs through the olive grove above, its movements slow and soothing, like the breath of creation resting upon the hillside. The wind brushes against every face, every shoulder. It feels like a hand placed gently on the back of each peacemaker, a silent affirmation, a quiet thank you, a reminder that God is near those who build bridges, even when the world rewards walls. Jesus' eyes sweep across the crowd, filled with compassion, with deep understanding. He sees the weariness of those who mediate conflict. He sees the discouragement of those who want harmony but live surrounded by strife. He sees the longing of those who wish their families could be whole again. He sees the courage of those who chose reconciliation even when their hearts trembled, and he calls them blessed. Not because peace is easy, but because peace is holy. Because peace is the imprint of God placed gently into human hearts. For the soul listening tonight, this blessing may feel like a gentle unveiling. Perhaps you have been the one who calms storms in conversations. Perhaps you have been the one who apologizes first. Perhaps you have carried the quiet ache of wanting harmony in places that cling to conflict. Perhaps you have longed for peace in your own spirit, even while chaos swirled around you. Let this blessing rest softly over you. You are not unnoticed. You are not unappreciated. Heaven sees every gentle word, every softened tone, every moment you chose love over being right. You carry the fragrance of God in your efforts, and every act of peace draws his presence near. Take a slow breath now. Inhale, letting the air fill your lungs with calm and clarity. Exhale, letting your spirit loosen, soften, settle. With each breath, imagine a warm light expanding within you, a light of peace, a light of harmony, a light that flows through your heart like a quiet river, reaching the places that feel tense, reaching the places that feel weary, reaching the places that long for calm. Let the hillside surround you gently. Let the olive branches sway above your quiet thoughts. Let the morning light rest softly across your spirit. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the bridge builders. Blessed are the tender hearts who mend what others break. Blessed are the ones who make space for peace in a world that often forgets its worth. The hillside settles into a deeper stillness, a quiet so soft it feels almost like a blanket being drawn gently over the gathering. The blessings have flowed like a gentle river, carving new space in weary hearts, softening what was once tense, loosening what was once clenched, and now, the entire crowd seems to exhale together, sinking into a quiet that feels sacred, as if heaven itself leans close, whispering calm into every breath. This is the descent into stillness, the moment when the soul is no longer striving, no longer reaching, no longer pressing against its own weight. It simply rests, held, cradled, carried by a peace not of its own making. A man sits near the front, his shoulders no longer tight, his jaw no longer clenched. Throughout the blessings, something inside him slowly unwound, years of quiet tension, years of trying to be strong for everyone, years of holding his emotions behind a guarded wall. Now, that wall feels thinner, softer, almost transparent. For the first time in a long time, he feels his spirit sinking into calm, not the calm that comes from ignoring pain, but the calm that comes from being seen, understood, held in divine gentleness. Near him, a woman breathes in deeply, her eyes half closed. She came to the hillside with a heart filled with noise, questions that spun endlessly, concerns that clung to her thoughts, worries that refused to loosen their grip. But now, as Jesus' blessings settle inside her, she feels something she had forgotten was possible, a quiet that is not empty, but full of peace, full of presence, full of a softness that feels like her soul is exhaling after being tense for far too long. Farther up the slope, a child leans softly against his father, his small chest rising and falling in slow, gentle waves. He does not fully understand the depth of the words spoken, but he feels the peace, feels the warmth, feels the safety that settles like morning light across the crowd. His lashes flutter, his grip on his father's robe loosens, and his tiny body relaxes completely, trusting the moment, trusting the presence, trusting the stillness. The air itself has changed. Where earlier it carried the murmurs of the crowd, now it carries silence, a silence so soft it does not feel empty. It feels alive, breathing through the olive branches, drifting over the grass, settling onto the faces of those who listen with open hearts. Sunlight warms the hillside, laying gentle bands of gold across the ground. The long shadows of olive trees stretch like soft strokes of paint. A faint hum of insects rises and falls, rhythmic, slow, soothing, each sound a whisper of creation resting alongside its creator. The earth feels steady beneath them, cool in some places, warm in others, a perfect cradle for this moment of surrender. Jesus stands at the center of the gathering, not speaking now, simply present. His calm radiates outward like light through crystal, reaching every person, filling every quiet space inside them. It is not the calm of indifference, but the calm of absolute peace, a peace that does not rise and fall with circumstances, a peace that exists simply because he is here, and his nearness allows their spirits to soften in ways they did not know they needed. All around the hillside, hearts begin to settle, not in resignation, but in trust, in the gentle certainty that they are no longer carrying everything alone. The burdens feel lighter, the sorrow feels held, the longing feels met, the fear feels quieted. Stillness is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of God in the middle of every feeling, a quieting of the inner storms, a softening of the inner edges, a resting of the inner voice that once whispered anxiously through sleepless nights. For the heart listening tonight, this stillness is an invitation, not to empty yourself, but to let God fill the empty spaces, not to silence your emotions, but to let them settle gently in His hands, not to pretend everything is fine, but to rest in the truth that you are held, seen, loved. Let your breath move slowly now. Inhale, letting the air flow in like soft light entering a dim room. Exhale, letting your spirit release just a little more of the weight it carried today. Feel the shoulders lower, feel the jaw loosen, feel the chest expand without strain, feel the quiet deepen inside you. This is the stillness the blessings lead toward, the stillness where God's presence becomes unmistakable, soft, steady, comforting. Let the hillside rise again in your imagination. Let the olive branches sway above you. Let the golden light rest across your spirit. Let the silence become a warm, safe space inside your heart. The descent into stillness is not an ending. It is a deepening, a gentle falling into the arms of peace, a quiet surrender into the presence of the one who holds all things tenderly. The hillside has grown so quiet now, so deeply settled, that even the breeze seems to move with reverence. The blessings have softened every rigid place, loosened every tight thread, opened every door the heart once kept firmly closed, and into this quiet, Jesus' presence does not feel distant or elevated. It feels near, very near, as though the peace flowing through the hillside is not around them, but within them, expanding gently with every breath. This is the moment of surrender, not dramatic, not forced, but tender, like a soft exhale after a long-held tension. The kind of surrender that comes when the soul finally realizes it does not have to fight, does not have to strive, does not have to hold itself together by sheer will. The kind of surrender that whispers, "It is safe to rest now." A woman sits on the lower slope, her hands resting loosely over her lap. She came with a heart crowded by unanswered questions, decisions she feared making, worries that tangled around her thoughts day and night. But as the blessings unfolded, something began to shift. Not a sudden change, but the gradual release of burdens she didn't even realize she had clenched tightly. Now, she feels her breath deepen, not because she tries to breathe deeply, but because her spirit finally has room to breathe. She looks toward Jesus, not with fear, not with uncertainty, but with the quiet gaze of someone who finally feels safe. Safe to let go, safe to be small, safe to be held by a presence greater than her own strength. Nearby, a man closes his eyes, his chin tilting slightly upward as if receiving warmth from the sky. He has spent years depending on his own resilience. He has carried pressure silently, even in faith. He often felt he had to maintain control. But now, in the hush of the hillside, he senses a gentle truth rising within him. Strength is not found in holding tightly. Strength is found in releasing what was never meant to be carried alone. He exhales slowly, a breath that feels like surrender, a breath that feels like freedom. A child sits nestled against his mother's side, his small hand resting on her arm. He does not know the weight adults carry. He does not know the depth of their worries. But he knows what surrender feels like, because children do it naturally, without resistance. They trust, they lean, they rest without questioning whether rest is allowed. And Jesus sees him, sees how his simple posture teaches a profound truth, that surrender is not weakness. It is relationship. It is trust that has learned it is safe to soften. The hillside itself seems to lean into rest. The shadows stretch longer, slower. The rustling of olive leaves becomes a soft lullaby. Even the sun feels warm without urgency, a presence rather than a demand. Jesus stands at the heart of it all, not urging, not pressing, simply being. His calm is a sanctuary. His silence holds more comfort than any multitude of words. His nearness invites the soul to loosen its grip, to unclench the fist around old fears, old failures, old wounds, and let them drift gently into the hands of God. All across the hillside, surrender begins to take shape within different hearts. For some, it is letting go of the fear of the future. For others, releasing regret from the past. For others, softening resentment, letting the heart breathe again after being tight for years. For others, it is simply allowing themselves to be loved, not for what they do, but for who they are, soft, flawed, human, beloved. For the heart listening tonight, this surrender calls softly. Perhaps you have carried expectations so long they feel like part of your bones. Perhaps you have held onto worries, replayed scenarios, protected yourself from disappointment. Perhaps you have tried so hard to stay strong that rest feels foreign. Let this be your gentle permission, not to abandon responsibility, but to release the illusion that you are alone in carrying it. God is near. God is present. God is ready to hold what you no longer need to grip so tightly. Take a slow breath now. Inhale, letting your spirit stretch into a softness you haven't felt in a long time. Exhale, letting the weight slip from your shoulders like cloth sliding from tired arms. Feel the warmth settle along your back. Feel the quiet wrap around your thoughts. Feel the tension unclasp inside your ribcage, as though something holy is whispering, "Rest now, it is safe." Let the hillside return in your imagination. Let the olive branches sway above you. Let the soft gold of morning settle on your skin. Let the presence of Jesus near you feel steady, gentle, trustworthy. This is surrender without fear, surrender without loss, surrender that leads the heart into peace, the peace that surpasses understanding, the peace that meets the soul exactly where it is and holds it tenderly. The hillside feels wrapped now in a quiet so deep, so tender. It is as if the very air has placed a gentle hand over the gathering. Everything has slowed, softened, settled. The blessings have moved like a warm tide, washing over weary spirits, bringing them into a peace they did not know they were longing for. And now, in this silence, something deeper begins to unfold, a peace that does not simply surround them, but enters them, filling the inner spaces that once felt hollow, dim, burdened. This is the moment when the soul begins to rest fully, not partially, not cautiously, but entirely, cradled in divine mercy, enfolded in the gentleness of God, held as tenderly as a child resting against the chest of someone who loves them completely. A woman sits near the front, her breath slow, her posture relaxed in a way she cannot remember feeling for years. Her mind, always busy, always tangled, always turning over the same worries, has grown quiet, not empty, just open, soft, restful. It is as though the blessings have cleared a space inside her, brushing away the frantic noise, leaving room for a deep, soothing calm to settle. She inhales, and the air feels warm, almost sweet. She exhales, and the last remnants of tension slip from her body like a small feather drifting down a gentle breeze. Nearby, a man closes his eyes, letting the morning warmth rest across his face. He came with heaviness pressed into the muscles of his back, into the tightness of his jaw, into the guarded corners of his heart. But now, he feels wrapped in something soft, a presence he cannot name, but recognizes, a mercy that does not require explanation, does not rush him, does not demand he fix anything. It simply holds him, like warm hands cupped around an ember, protecting it, nurturing it, allowing its light to glow again. A child lies curled against his mother's side, his small breath steady, deep, peaceful. He has drifted past wakefulness, into the quiet space between dreaming and resting, his body surrendered without fear, without hesitation, his trust absolute, and Jesus sees him, sees how effortlessly a child rests in love, sees how pure, how natural, how holy it is to let oneself be held. The hillside itself radiates peace. The olive branches sway in slow rhythms, their leaves catching the sun and shimmering softly. Shadows stretch like gentle brushstrokes across the earth. A bird glides overhead, wings unmoving, simply resting on the steady currents of air. The world seems to breathe with them. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, a sacred rhythm, calming every soul present. Jesus does not speak now. He doesn't need to. His presence is enough. His nearness is a balm, a deep reassurance that God's mercy is not distant. It is here, around them, within them, filling the spaces where old fears once lived, filling the wounds that once felt raw, filling the corners of the heart that once felt cold. Mercy becomes tangible, like warm water flowing through tired limbs, like soft cloth laid across aching shoulders, like gentle light entering dim rooms, not intruding, not overwhelming, just entering, slowly, kindly, healing what it touches. For the soul listening tonight, this moment of peace speaks tenderly. You do not have to earn rest. You do not have to prove you deserve calm. You do not have to hide the places that ache. Divine mercy is drawn to the tired, drawn to the humble, drawn to the ones who feel worn down by trying to hold too much. Mercy does not ask you to be strong. Mercy simply wraps around your weakness, lifts it, cradles it, holds it without judgment. Take a slow breath now. Inhale, letting air enter like light pouring gently through an open window. Exhale, allowing your spirit to sink deeper into stillness. Feel the warmth along your back. Feel the softness around your heart. Feel the quiet become fuller, heavier, comforting. This is divine rest. A rest that does not vanish with the fading of sunlight. A rest that sinks into the marrow, into the breath, into the soul. Let the hillside form clearly in your imagination. Let the olive branches sway. Let the world grow hushed. Let mercy rest on you like warm dusk settling slowly over the earth. You are surrounded by gentleness, wrapped in calm, carried by a peace far greater than your own strength, a peace that whispers softly, "You are safe, you are held, you can rest now." The hillside has become a sanctuary of quiet now, a place where breath moves slowly, where thoughts grow soft, where every heart feels suspended in a peace that seems to glow from within rather than around. The light has shifted, warmer, deeper, settling across the ground in long golden streams that feel almost like gentle hands resting on weary shoulders. And as the gathered souls sit wrapped in this calm, the blessings begin to settle into them like seeds sinking into rich soil, not disappearing, but taking root, promising comfort that will linger long after the hillside empties. This is the time when peace begins to glow from the inside, not loud, not bright, but like a quiet lantern lit in the heart, its flame steady, small, warm, shining softly through every crevice the blessings have touched. A woman sits near the front, her breath slow and steady. She can still feel traces of the worries she carried when she first arrived. Not sharp now, not heavy, just faint shadows at the edges of her mind, and even those shadows lighten under the glow of the peace settling gently within her. She feels the warmth in her chest, the softness in her shoulders, the quiet unfolding in her thoughts. She isn't trying to rest. Rest is simply happening to her, moving through her like a warm tide, calming, soothing, healing. Close by, a man leans slightly back on his hands, his eyes half closed as the breeze drifts across his face. He can feel the blessings resting deep inside him, not as words he must remember, but as a feeling, a sense of being held, understood, seen, something he didn't expect, something he didn't even know he needed. Yet here it is, rising from within, quiet as dawn, soft as a feather, sure as breath. Farther up the slope, a child lies curled on a soft patch of grass. The peace around him has become the peace inside him. His small chest rises gently, slowly, in the serene rhythm of sleep. His fingers are relaxed, his face smooth and unburdened. He dreams without fear, without noise, wrapped in the stillness that blankets the hillside, a living picture of how the soul rests when it knows it is safe. The entire hillside seems to hum with this quiet peace. Olive branches sway in long, slow arcs, casting soft shadows that ripple like gentle waves. Birdsong comes faintly, unhurried, weaving into the stillness without disturbing it. The earth beneath them feels cool and grounding, steady and kind, as if creation itself holds the blessing with them, as if the land remembers every word spoken and keeps it safe in its soil. Jesus remains at the center, silent now, no longer teaching, simply being. His presence radiates a calm that settles deeper than any human comfort, a peace that does not depend on circumstances, a peace that does not waver, a peace that feels like a promise whispered directly into the soul. Blessing has become more than something spoken. It has become something felt, something resting like a soft mantle over the gathering, something the listeners will carry long after their feet leave the hillside, something that will glow quietly through their evenings, their sleep, their waking moments, their days to come. For the heart listening tonight, this piece is meant for you too, not fleeting, not thin, not fragile, but deep, soft, steady, a peace that breathes inside you like a warm ember, a peace that tells your heart, you are safe, you are held, you are understood, you are loved beyond measure. Let your breathing match the rhythm of this quiet now. Inhale, letting calm expand within you. Exhale, letting old tension melt, crumble, dissolve. Feel the warmth along your spine. Feel the quiet anchor your thoughts. Feel the peace taking root in every place that once felt restless. You do not need to hold on to the blessings. They are holding on to you, gently, steadily, faithfully. They linger like warm light across evening hills. They settle like dusk falling softly over quiet fields. They cradle the soul like gentle hands cupping a flickering flame, keeping it safe, keeping it warm, keeping it alive. Let the hillside rise one more time in your imagination. Let the golden light gather around your spirit. Let the soft wind wrap you in its gentle embrace. The peace you feel now is not temporary. It is a whisper from eternity, a gift from God's own heart, a blessing that will follow you into the night and beyond. The hillside has grown almost dreamlike now, wrapped in a golden hush that rests softly over every soul. The blessings have settled deeply, like warm light sinking into the folds of the heart. The air is still, yet full, quiet, yet alive. Peace has found its home within the spirits gathered, and now it begins to glow, softly, steadily, gently guiding them toward the rest their bodies and hearts have long needed. This final moment is not an ending. It is a gentle closing of the day's sorrows, a soft folding of the spirit into the arms of God, a settling into the kind of peace that lingers long after the world grows dim, a peace that accompanies them into sleep like a warm lantern carried through the quiet corridors of night. A woman sits with her hands resting loosely before her, her breathing slow, steady. She can feel the blessings moving within her like soft threads of light, weaving comfort through the weary places. Where anxiety once pressed hard against her ribs, there is spaciousness now. Where fear once clung tightly to her thoughts, there is warmth. Where heaviness once lived, there is a tender glow. She closes her eyes, letting herself sink into this new softness, as though the hillside itself whispers around her, "Rest. Now, you are safe." Nearby, a man leans back slightly, letting the earth hold his weight. His heart, once clenched like a fist around grief, has opened, not entirely, but enough to let comfort flow in, enough to let divine nearness feel real, enough to trust that he does not have to carry what he once carried alone. He inhales, and grief feels lighter. He exhales, and mercy wraps around him like gentle arms guiding him towards stillness. He feels, perhaps for the first time in years, ready to rest, ready to sleep, ready to release himself into the quiet hands of God. Farther up the slope, the child who slept earlier lies completely at peace now. His small chest rises and falls in the slow, rhythmic waves of deep sleep. His fingers relaxed, his lashes still. He dreams without fear, without noise, without running, cradled by the hush that surrounds the hillside, safe in the presence that holds all things together. He becomes the quiet example of what every soul in the gathering is now invited into: a rest without worry, a sleep without strain, a peace that sinks into the bones. The olive branches above sway in long, slow patterns, like prayers moving through the air. Their shadows ripple gently across the ground, softening edges, soothing the land. Every rustle of leaves feels like a whisper of blessing, every shift of wind like a tender assurance, every breath of creation like an echo of God's own comfort, a lullaby woven from earth and heaven together. Jesus stands at the center, wrapped in stillness, radiating a peace that reaches deeply into the soul. He does not speak now. He does not need to. His silence is full, his presence enough. The blessings he has spoken continue to echo gently through the atmosphere, not as sounds, but as sensations: warmth, softness, safety, the quiet certainty that God is near, near in breath, near in thought, near in rest. And as the final moments upon the hillside unfold, peace begins to quietly tuck itself into the hearts of all who listen, a peace they will carry down the slope, a peace that will follow them through their day, a peace that will rest with them through the night, a peace that does not fade when the world grows dark, but becomes brighter, deeper, closer. For the soul listening tonight, this peace is for you, not a fleeting comfort, not a temporary pause, but a gentle covering drawn over your spirit like a soft blanket, a warmth that settles into the spaces where you once felt cold, a quiet that meets you exactly where you are, a calm that whispers, "You are safe now, you can rest, you can sleep, you can surrender your worries into hands that will never let you fall." Take one more slow, tender breath. Inhale, letting peace rise within you like warm light filling a dim room. Exhale, letting the last remnants of tension drift away like dusk fading into night. Feel your shoulders soften, feel your chest loosen, feel your mind quiet, feel your spirit nested gently into rest. Let the hillside linger in your imagination. Let the olive trees sway in slow choreography above you. Let the warm glow bathe your heart in stillness. You are wrapped in blessing. You are covered in mercy. You are surrounded by peace. And as sleep approaches, it comes not as a stranger, but as a gentle friend walking toward you with open arms, inviting you to lay down every weight, every worry, every whisper of fear, and drift into the deep, healing rest of God's presence. May your night be soft. May your dreams be light. May your spirit rest deeply in the peace of the one who calls you blessed.